Welcome to Sacred Symbols, the internet's most beloved PlayStation podcast. If you want to get our show 3 days earlier than free feeds and completely without ads, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand. Your support on Patreon also allows you to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to our show, gives you the ability to vote on the Let's Plays we do, allows you access to exclusive podcasts, and more. You can also buy Sacred Symbols merch by going to tinyurl.com/sacredshirts. I suspect you'd look damn sexy with our logo emblazoned across your chest, but that's just one man's opinion. Of course, we love our free feed listening audience too. If you don't have the means or desire to show us support on Patreon or with merch, please consider leaving us a nice review on the podcast service of your choice, and let friends and family know about Sacred Symbols. We, on the other hand, will keep making Tuesdays great again. But enough chatter. Have at you! On to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 54. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by the hot, but now I guess cooling, Chris Raygun, because your AC is getting fixed, I saw on Twitter.
On Wednesday, the first day of VidCon, after a month, basically, of asking them to fix it. So
that's unbelievable.
Really awesome timing.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's great.
You're going to VidCon. That's in Anaheim, right?
Yeah.
And our friends actually at Studio 71 that sell our ads here on Sacred Symbols are having a party. It's funny because they reached out to me and they were like, well, we know you don't want to go, but do you think Chris would want to go? And I was like, yeah.
I like how they knew immediately.
Oh, yeah. No, they know me well enough to know that I don't want to do anything except for this podcast. So, yeah, I didn't realize VidCon started during the middle of the week. I've only been once, so I don't recall.
It's a weird time to start, for sure. But I don't know. I guess that's what it is again. It also doesn't normally happen in July. So
yeah, it happens later, right? August?
It usually happens in June.
But I don't even remember being there in June.
Yeah, it's like shortly after E3 usually.
Oh. Well, that would be convenient, actually, for a lot of people coming here if they could segue from one to the other. Yeah. But I guess they don't care. Why would they care about other people? Other conferences. Chris, we actually have a question here from the audience. James E. Nunez wrote into us on Patreon. He says, hey, Chris, how you doing? That's all he asked. I don't know. So I figured we'd inquire about your wellness.
I'm doing okay. Things are pretty good.
Yeah.
I had to get a new phone, though, while I was in Vegas because my phone melted.
Did you leave it in the sun?
I guess so. No, what happened was the waterproofing seal, it's like a black kind of foam that's inside the phone. It got so hot that the waterproofing seal melted into the phone and destroyed it.
That sucks.
Yeah, so I had to get a new one while I was in Vegas.
Were you insured? Was your phone insured?
Yeah. It wasn't too big of a hassle, but it was still just like, of course, this would happen on a trip.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I saw you in Vegas. I wrote on one of your Instagram pictures, someone's got to stop you at some point. Now, I don't know who it will be. Maybe it'll be me. We'll end up finding out, but you need to be stopped. You were like basking in the sun. Now, Vegas is a great place. It's funny you say that because the only place I've ever seen a phone, because Erin likes to go to go to some of these resorts and just lay out in the sun by the pool. And her phone, I've never seen it except for her phone in Vegas. It literally shuts off and says it's too hot to turn on, which is so fun. I'm like, wow, if you leave it in the sun for like 2 seconds, it's over.
Yeah, it's hot over there, man.
Yeah, it's really
ridiculous.
Hot.
It was like 110 degrees.
It's very hot.
Like on a low end. Insane.
Did you go into any casinos?
Yeah. The casino thing isn't really my thing. I do like that things are open way late.
Oh, yeah.
You walk around at like 4 a.m. and people there's a bunch of people walking around. It's exactly my style. But I don't know. The whole casino thing, it's not my vibe. It feels a bit too, it feels like an airport that's trying to be cool. There's something about it. I don't know. The vibe.
The Vegas airport is also interesting, but did you fly?
No, we drove.
Oh, okay. The Vegas airport is funny to me because you can also just gamble there.
Really?
Yeah, there's just slot machines and everything all over the place in the Vegas airport. It's funny as hell to me. Well, I'm glad that you're back and that you're alive. James, Thank you for your inquiry on Chris's health. We appreciate that very much. Nate McKinney wrote into us on Patreon. Remember, supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand nets you early ad-free access to our show, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, just like Nate did. He said, gentlemen, it's time to get serious. Is bologna just a hot dog pancake? I don't like this one. See, now you guys are getting a little too flippant.
This is getting abstract.
Is bologna a hot dog pancake? Nate, do you think that that's really true? Because wouldn't that be any cold cut? If you sliced a piece of ham, is that not the same as a slice of bologna, and therefore is a slice of ham also a hot dog pancake?
Pancake needs to be a cake, right? That's what a pancake is. It's batter.
My thing is a cake needs grain in it, right?
Yeah.
Like pancakes have some sort of wheat in them I agree with you. I think you're being a little flippant.
It's getting a bit ridiculous. It's like, it's a Frisbee, a plastic sandwich?
Yeah.
Or like a plastic pancake? Who cares?
If you watch Parks and Rec, you'll know that a Frisbee could be a plate or a bowl. But yeah, not anything edible, unfortunately.
God help us all.
So Nate, I appreciate your guys' inquiries in this regard, but I ask you to really let's really narrow it down to the brass tacks and ask the questions that only matter.
The important ones.
I really think the question about a taco being a sandwich or whatever, I think that's a little more inquisitive than asking if bologna is a hot dog pancake, because there's no such thing as a hot dog pancake.
What is a hot dog bologna?
Yeah, why wouldn't you be able to inverse that? Is a pancake just a bologna, pork bologna,
Is a pancake just a cake bologna?
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
You guys are out of your fucking minds. Weston Canamore wrote in and said, hey, CNC, quick correction from last week's Sacred Symbols. You both talked about Disney divesting from Hulu in order to focus on their Disney Plus offering. What is happening is, in fact, the opposite. Disney recently made a deal with Comcast, the second largest shareholder of Hulu next to Disney, in which Comcast will sell its remaining stake in Hulu over the next 5 years to Disney for a total of $5.8 billion. If Disney's plan all along was to gain ownership of Hulu, I don't understand why they didn't just add Disney Plus as a premium add-on, much like what Hulu and even Amazon have been doing for years with their offers. I guess this is just one step closer to Disney's full world domination. Much love. I looked into this a little bit, Weston. I think you're right, actually. There is a weird divestment scheme going on to remove, I guess, NBC because Comcast owns NBC Universal now. I guess getting rid of them. But the point I was making still stands, that I think that the smaller, and I think all the non-first party publishers should make a Hulu type game streaming or game pass like service. Yeah. And I'm not subscribing to Square Enix's Game Pass. I'm sorry, I just can't.
No, why? You can get all the episodes of the Final Fantasy VII remake that are not coming out.
I was looking forward to playing Final Fantasy 13-3 Lightning Returns.
Remastered.
Some people really played all three of those final. There really were 3 Final Fantasy 13 games. It's almost impossible to believe that actually happened.
Is that the first time that's happened?
It's the first time there were 3.
No, but I mean, is that the first time we've had a numbered sequel to a numbered sequel in video games? Because I can't think of any. I grapple with the thought of any other franchise that has had like a Call of Juarez 2-6.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X-2 is the first one I can think of.
Yeah.
Before that, I don't think so. There are I
don't even think since, really. I feel like the only franchise that does that.
Yeah. Maybe Kingdom Hearts does that too, because they have Kingdom Hearts. Remember when we played Kingdom Hearts 3, our Let's Play, we actually played Kingdom Hearts 2.9 apparently.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we technically fulfilled our Let's Play. By the way, my writer, Sophia, who writes Side Quest, has taken ill, as they might say in Victorian England. She has taken ill. And so our Side Quest episode this week is going to be delayed. And so our Let's Play that you and I did last week, Chris, is actually going up this week.
Oh, okay.
And that's our Titanfall 2 Chase for the Platinum Trophy. It is a really weird video. I'll just put it that way. It's a very weird video, and we'll definitely go back. You'll have to find out if we were successful or not.
I forgot to go home and actually try it.
I'm not surprised that you forgot. John Carey wrote into us and said, hey, CNC Machine, patron since the founding day of CLS, but my first time writing. Am I the only one that is concerned with the Wall Street Journal article you talked about last week? Specifically the part where Sony talked about targeting big name games and the hardcore audience. My thought is, why put all your eggs in one basket? Most PS exclusives that have been announced feel very similar. Third-person action games, now they're admittedly killing it with titles like Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man, Uncharted, etc., but it still feels dangerous to build your entire ecosystem around big budget games. Why not build your ecosystem around everything? And I don't just mean indies, but better UI, better storefront, controller customization, etc. Games matter most, but there is a lot of niche markets they seem to be ignoring. It's the one thing I really want to praise Microsoft for. They really have taken to selling Xbox as a service. That is something to offer for everyone. I like this, Chris, before we get into the games we're playing, because this was a major part of our episode last week, episode 53, the Wall Street Journal article, which was excellent. And I agree with him. I've had time to stew on this, and I don't know if you have had too, but I guess I keep returning to the question that he's asking, which is, why can't Sony do it all? Why not? I don't understand why, because I agree with him. The Wall Street Journal focus on AAA, big games and stuff like that, and smaller devs and smaller publishers feeling kind of, shit on, and Sony basically saying like they'll just come anyway because what else are they going to do?
Yeah,
I find a problem with some of this, to be honest.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that their focus on big budget or bigger titles necessarily excludes them from focusing on a better UI or a better storefront or any of that. Like I don't see how those are, I don't see how either of those get in the way of each other. But yeah, it's not particularly all that wise, in my opinion, to limit yourself to a specific kind of niche like that, especially when you are building the successor to one of the most popular platforms on planet Earth, probably.
Yes.
So it's weird. It's a weird business model, but I don't know. Maybe it'll help them out. Maybe the fact that maybe their focus on hardcore and their use of that kind of like terminology indicates that maybe we will be getting like some kind of controller customization and stuff like that. Maybe they will make an Elite controller because they're investing in this audience. So I don't know. I think there's reason to be excited about it, but it's also like, maybe you're cutting yourself a bit low there.
Yeah, I just don't understand, because I agree. I mean, I don't know that there necessarily is an opportunity cost, but Sony's making it seem like there's an opportunity cost. But it is important to note that Wall Street Journal article doesn't talk to anyone on the record. It's all sources. So it's not as if Sony is like only talking about certain things. They might not even have certain things figured out, assuming the console is still some 16 or 17 months out.
Like, we're still going to get indies on PlayStation 5. Like, I would be shocked if we didn't. That would be insane, actually. I can't imagine it. No indie games at all?
Yeah, it's I don't think that. But to be fair, I don't think that that's what they're saying, or he's saying. Because Sony does say that they expect that they'll just come anyway. But the point is like, why not just invest in making sure you're treating these people right as well? Because I think independent games and smaller games are actually quite essential to the success of a console. Nintendo Switch is largely selling on smaller games. I mean, they have these big tentpole games, but people buy shit tons of small games. They like to play their Stardew Valley and all of that on their Switch. So Sony had this really great relationship for a long time with indies, and actually, like I said, used to wear it on their shirts. Sony Loves Indies was a thing that was like a banner in their building and all sorts of stuff. And it's a little weird when you think about the early PS4 era, when some of the best games on the console were actually small games, like Housemarque's Resogun is the best launch game on PS4.
Yeah, or like Journey and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These because these are some first, Housemarque obviously being second party, but even games like Mercenary Kings, and there was a lot of early stuff that actually was much better than a lot of the shit we were getting from AAA developers. So I don't know. I just fear that if you aim too much, it sounds a lot like an Xbox strategy from back in the day, and it didn't actually work out that well for them in the long run, because they were focusing on Summer of Arcade for a little while, then they stopped, then they were focusing on their big AAA games, then the Xbox One came out, and no one really cares. You got to have that long tail commitment, I think. Yeah. And so I'm sympathetic to this fear, Chris. I'm sympathetic to this fear.
I think it's fair.
Now, before we move on, I mentioned on Twitter right before we started the show, or actually before we started recording it, we are going to do the Sacred Symbols episodes, the second episodes beginning in August. And I want people to know, so I think Sacred Symbols Plus is what it's going to be called. I think that's a perfect name. And it'll basically be just ancillary. I want it to be more than a half an hour, less than an hour, spin-off conversations about important topics. And so I want people to start wrapping their minds around what that might mean. I think it's going to be really exciting. So sometimes it'll be spoiler casts. Sometimes it'll be me just reading a mailbag, or Chris just reading a mailbag about a game he recently played. But a lot of times I think it'll be fun to expand on something we talked about, but we weren't able to really delve into, because I don't want to weigh the story. I don't want to weigh the show down with 45-minute conversations about one topic. And then let's move on to number 3.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I just don't think that's the way the show flows.
And then speed by the rest of the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So this is going to happen. I think what we'll do, Chris, is we'll probably record them back to back if we can. But sometimes, and we have to figure out, the way I look at it is it'll often usually be me and you. Sometimes it'll be me. Sometimes it'll be you. And then I occasionally assume maybe we'll get some other people involved as well. Yeah. But I think that just expanding the ecosystem a little bit, having more conversation, more humor. The thing about our audience is that our audience likes two things. They like to laugh and they like hard information. Our podcast is incredibly informative, but it's also incredibly zany. And so I want to also carry that over to our Sacred Symbols Plus as well. So I just wanted to bring that up so people can give us their feedback. Yeah. The general idea, here's the structure of it for people that are curious. It'll probably go live, I assume, on Fridays for $5 and up Patreon subscribers. And then on Monday, the following Monday, it'll go live for anyone on Patreon. So anyone with $1, supporting at $1 or above. And so basically, the way I look at it is, if that's all you want, if you just want the $1 sub and there's 4 to 5 episodes per month, you're paying 20 to 25 cents an episode. That's a pretty good deal. Yeah. and they won't all be for you. Like some you won't want. If I have a deep dive on a Tales game or something, you might not want to listen to that. But then it's just 25 cents in the drain. So it's not like it's a huge investment. So yeah, I love everyone's feedback about what they think we should do, and I think we'll begin rolling that out in August.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I like that you use the word zany there.
Yeah,
it's a fun word.
It is. It's funny. Irreverent is another good word.
Is zany like what does that really mean?
Zany?
Like of Zane?
No, I don't
like
think...
having much Zane?
Yeah, I guess the root word of Zane. Yeah, no, Zane. Yeah, I don't know where the word comes from, zany. We can look it up. Would you like me to look it up?
No.
Okay. Well, we don't have to look it up then.
I was just genuinely curious.
No. Well, if you're genuinely curious, and then I just asked if you wanted me to look it up, and you just said no.
No.
So you're not genuinely curious.
Well, I guess I'm partially curious.
Yeah.
Not enough to really care that much.
To Zane.
It's not a Zane.
It's not a verb. Yeah. So, Chris, that's kind of the plan with that. The other thing is that we're going to record episode 55 right after this, as I think we talked about last week.
Yeah.
I'm going away for a little while to see family and record Knockback.
Simply pathetic.
I'm so stressed out when I have to leave. Basically, leaving my domain ruins about a week of my life before I leave.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's just, I kind of dread it. It's not, I don't dread being with my family.
It's the travel.
Yeah, I dread the travel.
The going to the airport and like standing in line next to a bunch of fat people who are just like screaming.
Fucking fat
and
people.
Sweating.
Yeah, it's just.
I just can't do it.
Didn't we talk about last week too? Why? I just don't understand how you can have BO on an airplane in the morning. What happened? I understand if you're on like the fucking 9 o'clock at night flight in a warm place, maybe you're a little stinky, but. That I can't fucking abide by.
It's an epidemic.
It's really just fucking bathe yourself, wash your balls, and all these other things. By the way, I don't know if you saw my tweet about this. A gutter kid in Santa Monica threatened to slit Lola's throat.
Why? I guess there is no why to these kinds of things.
And then and I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, what the fuck did you just say? And then he told me I should slit Lola's throat because she's dangerous. And so I'm adding all of this craziness. By the way, I tweeted about this. Gutter kid or gutter punk is a specific term, by the way. So then a lot of, and that's a self-described term.
Did people think that you were just talking about like
homeless
homeless people?
Yeah, which I'm not. And then so some people were, and then some people thought, one guy came in and was like, "You hate immigrants." I'm like, what? And then another guy. A few other guys were like, yeah, homeless. I'm like, you're the one talking about homeless people. I'm not talking about homeless people. Some of them are homeless. Often they're homeless by choice. I fell into an interesting rabbit hole on the internet after this when I was reading about the whole culture of the gutter kid or the gutter punk.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called voluntary unemployment that I was reading about. And that's apparently their whole credo. So anyway, one of these dudes at a bus stop threatened he didn't like come at us or anything like that. Actually, I got in his face a little bit. And because I'm like, and you can always tell, by the way, when you're in Santa Monica, these guys are so used to just shit talking tourists and people that aren't from here and stuff like that. I think he was a little taken aback that I like actually
engaged with him.
Yeah, engaged him. He had probably 3 or 4 inches on me and 100 pounds on me. So I think he could have squashed me like a bug. But I'm typically a pacifist. But if you're gonna talk shit about my dog and tell me that my dog's throat should be slit, that's a weird thing to say to someone.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think weird is a bit of an understatement.
That's a weird one.
That one.
That's a weird one on me. And so some of the reaction online, I actually lost a patron because of it. I'm like, all right, see you later, I guess. I don't know what to tell you about that. So combining the dog drama with all of the preparation for leaving has indeed frazzled me quite a bit over the last few days. And because I'm preparing for Knockback and watching some films in preparation for that and taking notes. I don't know. I'm almost ready for this vacation to just be over, if that makes any sense to you. But I know that once I'm there, I'm going to be quite pleased.
No, exactly. That's like the story of anybody who works from home, who's going on vacation, basically.
So hopefully there are no gutter punks in Philadelphia that want to threaten. Lola won't be there to. Can you imagine threatening violence to Lola? Can you imagine that?
I can't imagine threatening an animal that isn't currently attacking me.
It wasn't like an active threat where he came at her with a knife, but that's like a specific thing where like you can't say that to someone, you can't say that. Oh my God, dude. Santa Monica's great. I don't know why we pay so much money to live here. It's like we can't even go outside safely. I don't even walk around with my wallet at night in case I get jumped. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not some place that I would want to live.
Yeah, it's just a very strange place. I like Santa Monica. I think it's got a lot of style. I think it's got a lot of spirit, but
yeah.
There's something I just can't stand like this.
There are parts here that are like dirtier than New York.
Yeah.
And it blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Insane to me.
Yeah.
And there's this great. I was with Bunty like last time I was here, and they have those trash cans with like the split grid on top of it that says like trash and recycling. So you put in, but like they both lead to the same exact bid.
That's so funny you said that, dude, because Aaron and I were just talking about those a few weeks ago. About how I never even, because I used to carry Lola's poop around because it'd be like recycle. First of all, I hate these things. Cans, paper. Whenever there's too many options, I'm like, it's all going in one bin. Sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I don't know. At San Francisco Airport was the funniest where there was like 8 trash cans and I'm like, it's all going in one trash can. I just can't. I'm not sitting here doing this. So yeah, we were talking about that and I told her that it was just a few weeks ago that I realized that it was just all leading in, because I'd carry Lola's poop bag around forever not assuming that was those were garbage cans.
Yeah.
But they're garbage cans.
Yeah, it's trash. It's all trash. It's the recycling. The recycling is on the bin as like a placebo effect to make people feel a little bit less shitty about throwing recyclables into the trash.
I brought Loli out to walk her at like 4 a.m. last night before I went to bed, and there was a dude in front of my building who was clearly waiting for me to come back, and so I would let him in, and then he could steal a bunch of packages in our lobby, which is what always happens in our lobby. So it forced me to walk into the back of my apartment and come through the back door. This is the kind of shit we deal with here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's exclusive to Santa Monica. I lived in San Francisco for 10 years, and it's pretty zany up there too. But the homelessness and the gutter punk problem here, exponentially worse, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Exponentially worse.
Yeah.
And unsafe.
I've noticed.
One of them cornered Aaron in our lobby. Another one hid in our lobby trying to get into the elevator. I mean, it's like...
It's crazy.
It's a little Mad Max-ish out here in Santa Monica. You guys should come and visit.
Burbank's fine.
Burbank's nice. I'm thinking about maybe buying a house in the next year or so, and I'm wondering where I should do it. Because Santa Monica is pretty expensive. I think I could probably afford something here, but I also feel like it's going to be engulfed by the ocean at some point. I think I want to go a little bit inland, but then I won't have that ocean breeze, It's pretty cool here. Cool weather-wise here. So, a lot to think about. Burbank's really nice, though.
It's not bad. I like it.
Also, Burbank will always remind me of Jay Leno, because that's how I was introduced to Burbank, because he filmed in Burbank, and they always said that at the end of the show. And I'm like, what's Burbank?
Yeah, they used to have like Nickelodeon bumpers with like Burbank on it, too.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Well, not really. Chris, let's get into what we're playing. You actually left your field blank. Have you not played anything?
Well, I've been
you've
playing...
been gone.
Well, yeah, I've been working on some videos, and I've also just been in Vegas, and I wasn't going to pack my PS4 and bring it to Vegas. But I did bring my Switch. I've been playing My Friend Pedro on Switch, which is good. I assume that's probably coming to PS4 because it's on PC and Switch, and that's a weird combo.
Yeah.
I anticipate it's probably going to come to Xbox One and PS4 at some point. That is solid. When that comes out, and it will, check it out because it's actually great. But nothing on PlayStation right now, unfortunately.
I've played pretty much the same games we talked about last week: Bloodstained, Persona 4, and Resident Evil. I'm still kind of chipping through each of them. Last week, I had a lot to say about Persona 4, I think, or 2 weeks ago. The game's picking up again a little bit for me. Mm-hmm. It really is an uneven game. I just want to say I'm a little surprised by the nature of this game's substantial popularity with Japanese role-playing game fans. I want to reiterate that. It's not like this. It's not amazing, guys. I don't see it. I'm now 25 hours into the game. I mean, that's enough time to really have a grasp on something.
No, Colin, it gets great 76 hours in.
Speaking, it's like Final Fantasy 13. Remember that people used to say got really good 40 hours in? It actually did get good 40 hours in, but you shouldn't have to spend 40 hours to get to that.
If it doesn't get good 10 to 20 minutes in, I'm sorry. Like I got things to do.
I'm totally with you there. So I'm continuing on with that slowly. Bloodstained, I got some multiple endings. Dude, the Platinum Trophy is surprising to me. I wanted to talk about this, if I might.
Okay.
The Platinum Trophy in the game has a really high engagement. It has like a 7 or 8% acquisition rate, but it's not hard. It's just a really time-consuming Platinum where, I'm 30-something hours into the game and I'm still missing a few trophies because you have to grind all these weapons and manufacture all this shit. So I was surprised by that. I think it suggested to me that this game has a really hardcore audience. I'm going to really carefully watch that number as it moves because it suggests to me that it might not have actually sold as well as we think, but maybe it did. And finally, Resident Evil 2, still playing through Jill's campaign. Is it Claire? No, it's
Claire.
Claire, yeah, it's Claire. Jill's in the first one. So I'm working through that as well. Tony Bertucci wrote into us on Patreon, Chris. He said, hey guys, Colin, I just watched your Bloodstained gameplay video and was very intrigued, but I've never played Castlevania Symphony of the Night. My question is this: should I play Bloodstained or should I play Castlevania first to fully appreciate it? Thanks for all the work you guys do, and thank you for making my workday a little easier. Good question. Bloodstained is so on the nose with Symphony of the Night that I think you can only appreciate it to its fullest extent by having played Symphony of the Night first, and there's a wonderful PS4 port of Symphony of the Night, so I would suggest starting there and then playing Bloodstained. I think they're both excellent.
Today was a rough one, the man said softly to himself as he stepped into his apartment building after a long day's work. I wonder if there's anything in the mail. As he grabbed his keys from his pocket and inserted them into his mailbox, a strange feeling of calm overtook him. Could it be? He asked. He grabbed a pile of mail, including a strange package, and he rode the elevator up to his apartment. Upon walking into his door, he shuffled through envelopes and quickly worked his way to the package. MeUndies was emblazoned upon it. MeUndies, the man wondered. I could really use some new undergarments, but it couldn't possibly be. Could it? When he ripped open the package, he found exactly what he'd hoped. Luxurious underwear, socks, and more made with the finest fabrics. As if this mysterious online vendor went back in time to trade on the Silk Road itself. But it's not the year 200 BCE, it's 2019. I ought to try these on, the man declared. I absolutely must. And try them on he did. Boxers, boxer briefs, comfortable socks with the most wonderful and bizarre designs on them. One with mermaids, another with pineapples, and another yet with funky imagery straight out of Saved by the Bell. I loved Saved by the Bell, the man said, though let's be honest, who didn't? That Screech guy ended up being a bit of a dick, though. The man sat on his couch, confused where this package came from. Then he remembered. During a late-night binge of CBD oil and old episodes of Family Ties, he went to MeUndies.com, that's MEUNDIES.com, and filled his shopping cart with all manner of menswear. And did you know that women can also buy garments there too? It's true. It's a godforsaken free-for-all over at MeUndies.com. I really should tell my friends about this, the man said as he grabbed his iPhone and began mass texting everyone he knew. He told them that they could all get their first pair of MeUndies for 15% off, and better yet, there's a 100% satisfaction guarantee. So there's no risk. He wouldn't want to put his friends at risk. I wouldn't want to put my friends at risk. I already said that. To get 15% off your first pair of MeUndies so you can join the comfort revolution just like our mysterious hardworking friend here, go to MeUndies.com/symbols. That's MEUNDIES.com/SYMBOLS. And then bask in the glory of knowing you too can demand some of the world's very finest undergarments. They are damn fine.
Chris, let's get into the news.
Alrighty.
There's a few things to talk about here. Number one, it looks like a Batman Arkham Collection is inbound for PlayStation 4 if a leak from the always leaky Amazon UK branch is to be believed. By the way, this has since been confirmed, just so you guys know, just very recently as the time we're recording this. Website Komatsu relays not only the leaked listing, but also box art for the collection on both PS4 and Xbox One. The collection's leaked description seems to indicate that the Rocksteady trilogy will be included here, thus keeping Batman Arkham Origins out of the mix. Quote, Batman Arkham Collection brings you the definitive versions of Rocksteady's Arkham Trilogy games, including all post-launch content in one complete collection, end quote. The PS4 version will apparently get an exclusive skin, but that's all we know, other than a release date, which was also leaked September 6th. Batman Arkham Asylum, Rocksteady's first Batman game, came to PS3 and elsewhere in 2009, and was followed by Arkham City on the same platforms in 2011. 2013's Arkham Origins, created by WB Montreal, isn't considered part of the series and won't be re-released. However, 2015's Arkham Knight will also be in this collection, rounding out the trilogy. Rocksteady was founded early in the 21st century and has pretty much only made Batman games since, with the exception of 2006's Urban Chaos Riot Response, their very first game on PS2 and Xbox. So this is not surprising, I guess. All of these games are already on PlayStation 4. You just have to buy them, I think, individually. So now it's a collection. Yeah,
I was confused by this news because I could have sworn that this collection existed already, but I guess they're just on the storefronts.
Yeah,
you know,
I think they released last year or so, Chris, like the Arkham Asylum and City combo.
Yeah,
and then you have Knight.
I guess
they're all putting them together.
I also know that like they're all currently on Game Pass right now. So like I just kind of like, all right, I guess all right, the collection works.
It's a slow week, so that is truly the biggest news. I have to be honest with you, I think, of this week.
Hey man, it's July.
It is.
What's gonna happen in July?
Nothing. Hopefully a meteor hits the Earth.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
Number 2, at the very last second, PlayStation Plus games were swapped for the month of July, an exceptionally rare act that requires some sort of explanation. Thankfully, website Eurogamer pursued such an explanation, though it wasn't exactly satisfying. For those unaware, July's free PlayStation Plus games, as we talked about on the show last week, were supposed to be PES 2019, Konami's annualized soccer game, alongside an indie racing game. But suddenly, PES 2019 was replaced by a Sony-owned second-party game in the form of Detroit Become Human. In a brief statement provided to Eurogamer, Konami PR said, quote, "This decision was made by SIE, and so please make an inquiry to SIE," end quote. SIE, of course, is Sony's new new acronym. Sony, on the other hand, said something even more cryptic. Quote, "We have decided to make a change to the PS Plus games lineup this month, and we'll be offering Detroit Become Human instead of Pro Evolution Soccer 2019. This was a decision we decided to make as a company, and we apologize for any inconvenience," end quote. Eurogamer speculates that with Sony so deeply in bed with EA's FIFA franchise, this might have been done to avoid trouble there. However, we'll never know for sure. I think, Chris, a lot of people assume that this was actually done based on quality and complaints, but I don't think that's the case. I actually do think the FIFA inquiry is probably true. I think that EA was probably like, what the fuck are you doing? There are literally PlayStation FIFA ads everywhere.
Yeah.
And Sony was like, you're probably right. And or Sony might have been in breach of some sort of contract, but I have a hard time believing they were like, oh, everyone's mad.
No, you know what I like to think happened is that we talked about it on the show and we complained about it, and thus, as we typically do, willed yet another thing into existence.
It's unbelievable. That's especially unbelievable because it actually happened before we posted. So there's some sort of telekinetic. We have some sort of telekinetic connection with these particular people.
We do.
But that's good news. I think that makes a little bit more sense. I know that that's probably disappointing to some people, I would imagine, because they probably are looking forward to playing it. Probably FIFA fans were probably looking forward to playing the competition, but Detroit Become Human's a great game. Yeah. So go enjoy. And the fact that they had to put in a second party Sony owned property means that this was done at the last second. But I like Eurogamer's theory. I think makes a lot of sense. Brent Lindquist wrote in and said, "Hey fellas, I'm writing in about the recent switcheroo that occurred with the free PlayStation Plus titles for July. I was pretty excited about it as I haven't played Detroit yet and I don't have much interest in soccer games. It sounds like it was a Sony decision rather than a Konami one, and I'm just wondering, is there any precedent for a game being pulled and replaced at the last second like this? Was this an example of Sony giving in the fan backlash?" So we talked about that already. I can't think of an example of this happening at the very last second. I remember this happening a few times when the games were announced and then they would be taken out. That happens actually all the time in the drop too. If you go back to old drops, there's a bunch of games crossed out because they ended up not coming out. So I can't think offhand of when they literally switched something seemingly at midnight hour because of something troubling on their end.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either. It seems like a pretty rare happenstance.
What I'm curious about is because obviously we've talked about Sony pays lump sum dollars. They probably paid a 7-figure sum to Konami for the game. I wonder if they just had to pay that and not have it there. And obviously they're not going to pay themselves for Detroit, so there's really no loss. But they paid for that game. So I wonder how that all worked out too. And that's definitely a 7-figure deal for a game of that caliber. So as opposed to probably a 6-figure deal for the other game. Yeah. So we'll see how it all shakes out in the future, but we need more from PlayStation Plus. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Number 3, Chris. There is substantial excitement, building for Monster Hunter World's upcoming DLC pack, Iceborne. According to an interview on Game Informer as relayed by website Push Square, the game's producer Ryozo Sugimoto, noted that Iceborne will be, quote, the last expansion, end quote. This is a sad fact for those who are hoping for more, but it's not a gigantic surprise, as Capcom is probably keen to begin working on the next Monster Hunter game. After all, Monster Hunter World is somehow Capcom's best-selling game in its entire history. The Iceborne's expansion itself will launch in early September. We now know it'll be the game's one and only major expansion. Is this surprising to you? Would you rather Capcom continue to build off of Monster Hunter World or make a new game? Because I think that the impetus is on them right now to make a new one. This is the same problem I think that Battle Royale makers are going to experience, but in longer tails. This Monster Hunter World is the most successful Capcom game of all time, which is incredible. I mean,
that's pretty wild.
Think about that,
given their history.
Street Fighter 2, bigger than Street Fighter 2, right? I mean, that alone is crazy. Bigger than any Resident Evil game.
Yeah,
it's a pretty wild thing.
That's no small feat, I don't think.
With that in mind, Chris, what would you prefer that they do? I know you're not a player of the game, but if you were, you're a player of immersive, persistent games like this. So
yeah, It's tricky because like this is a game that like if it's really their best selling game of their entire history, I would have anticipated them to take a Rockstar approach, like the way they did with Grand Theft Auto 5, or is it 6?
No, Grand Theft Auto 5 is the one with GTA Online. GTA 6 is starting to be rumored, but I think we're a ways off on that.
Yeah, but like, they kept that thing alive for a long time. And I assume that would be the smart thing because that's the thing that's selling a lot and the thing it's got the biggest player base. So I anticipated that. I guess a new game's fine as long as they keep going with the formula they got. But I don't know. I think I would have tried to milk this one a little bit for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm a little confused by that. I was reading about it because I was like, wasn't Iceborne the only expansion?
Yeah, and also like it's
And it
kind
is.
of a recent game. It's not like super old at all.
Yeah, it came
Right?
out January or February last year, right? Something
Yeah,
that.
like something like that. Like or like within 2 years, which is not long.
It's so funny, man, that they actually found just massive success with this plotting series. First of all, I don't like Monster Hunter. I think it's boring, but this thing was attached to handhelds and attached to a very specific audience. And I remember when Vita was struggling, that the big claim was that they needed a Monster Hunter game because Monster Hunter was so big on PSP, and they segued to 3DS, and that really fucked Sony a lot. So it was a really important game for handhelds, but it seems like, ironically, it's selling even better on console. I can't keep up with how this is all working. It's the same thing with Kingdom Hearts, actually, where some of these games are on PSP and on 3DS and stuff, and I'm like, are those selling better than the console ones? And who's playing all of them? You got to buy all this hardware. Very complicated issue.
It's a bit much. A bit much for me.
It's a lot much for me, Chris. Number 4, dubious rumors have been circulating for a week or so about Polish developer CD Projekt working on 3 Cyberpunk games concurrently. Word originally came from apparently botched translations from Polish website Bankier, which talked to the team's president, Adam Kaczynski, and the team's CEO, Peter Nubliowicz. Nilobowicz.
Yeah.
Nilobowicz, probably. The botched translation, as regurgitated by IGN, apparently noted that 3 projects were in development from the franchise, but a comment from CD Projekt puts the persistent rumor to rest. Quote, "We currently have a total of 5 teams working on a number of projects, with 3 focusing on the development of Cyberpunk 2077, end quote. Their statement read in part. A 4th team is working on Gwent, the card game based on The Witcher, and a 5th team is working on an unannounced mobile project. The funny thing about this to me, Chris, was how many people were circulating this and then updated their stories with the proper translation. And it's like, you probably, this is what, didn't we talk about this a couple weeks ago with Japanese?
We did.
Find someone who speaks Polish and see what it says. Stop running your shit through fucking Google Translate.
Is that what they do?
I would assume so. Pretty big difference between 3 Cyberpunk games in development and 3 teams working on Cyberpunk. And you can see how an auto translation would fuck that up when you're talking about English to Polish or Polish to English.
Google Translate, by the way, anybody who uses it's not real. It doesn't work really.
No,
like,
it's better than it used to be, but it's yeah.
You can't put like a even with Spanish, which is like probably like the most developed one probably on Google Translate. It botches it completely.
It's hard.
So it's gonna mess up Polish for sure.
It's horrible. You know, it's funny though, because the Google Translate back in the day, remember Babelfish back in the day? That was an Alta Vista product. Alta Vista used to be this old search engine, and they were popular in the 90s and early 2000s because they had this thing called Babelfish, which is this great, actually pretty advanced translator. And it's cool because you can take shit and put it in and get a general idea of what something says. But don't use these translations literally if you guys work out, any of you are working out there at a website. Although I will say that when I was in French in both high school and college, I would use Babelfish and translate all sorts of shit and then submit it as my own work. Okay? I would write it in English, hit translate, and then submit it and get like a C, and that was good enough.
Yeah.
So you can do that, I guess. But let's
then
be
your
careful.
article will get a C.
Exactly. Then your article gets a C for fucking ineptitude. Number 5, an obscure From Software developed third-person shooter from 2004 is coming westward for the very first time, and it's happening sooner than you might think. Quirky publisher Devolver Digital is bringing Metal Wolf Chaos XD to PS4 and elsewhere on August 6th later this summer, and it'll be the very first release outside of Japan. From Software developed the game exclusively for the original Xbox, and it only came out in Japan towards the end of 2004. This wasn't the only Xbox game From worked on during this era, however. The team also worked on its Otogi series for the console, as well as games like Murakumo. Metal Wolf Chaos was its final original Xbox exclusive before moving on to next gen. From Software was founded in the mid-'80s and is best known for its Demon Souls / Dark Souls / Bloodborne franchises. Its most recent release was Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, launched earlier this year, and its newest announcement is Elden Ring, a game that the studio is creating alongside Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin on behalf of publisher Bandai Namco. So that's pretty cool. I was actually looking at some videos of this game. It's like a third-person shooter. I don't really know if they've upscaled it. It doesn't look very good, but I love these Xbox and Xbox 360 Japanese exclusives because there are a lot of them. Because Microsoft was spending a ton of money trying to get people to play. Didn't work out very well. People might remember that Tales of Vesperia, which was a Tales game, a mainline Tales game, was an Xbox 360 exclusive for a while. So
I remember being confused by that. I remember just logging onto the store and being like, what is this?
They tried. I will give it to Microsoft. They tried. There's a ton of games like that. So this is one of the more obscure ones from From's not MechWarrior. What's the Armored Core days?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it all works out with that. But I'm excited to play that. Number 6. A substantial post on the official PlayStation blog has brought to our attention 3 new games coming from niche Japanese publisher Spike Chunsoft. All 3 of these games are coming to PlayStation 4. The first game is Conception Plus Maidens of the 12 Stars. This is an interesting release as this game was initially a PSP exclusive launched only in Japan in 2012 and has never seen the light of day elsewhere or on other platforms. Strangely, its sequel, Conception 2 Children of the 7 Stars, launched on both PS3 and Vita in the West way back in 2013. The second game is a new adventure game called Robotics Notes Elite, due out in 2020. Interestingly, Spike Chunsoft notes that its sequel, Robotics Notes Dash, may be coming westward too. And finally, rounding things out is an action RPG called Crystar. Crystar is the closest of the bunch and the only one with a release date, August 27th. Chris, these are games not for you.
Yep. I mean, hey, they're for someone.
Yeah. Crystar actually looks pretty good.
It blows my mind that like they allow these things to happen though. Like they'll put out the second version of a game in a place where the first one was just not even remotely playable.
Isn't that weird?
It's weird. You'd think you would kind of cover your bases before you launched something.
It's a very old school thing to do. It's like how we got Final Fantasy 1, then we got Final Fantasy 4, then we got Final Fantasy 6. We never got 2, 3, or 5 in the West until later. But we called them 1, 2, and 3 here. Very confusing. So that's a very old thing. I agree with you. Mm-hmm. You would think they would have wanted to port that PSP game first, but it wasn't so. I remember getting Atlas published. It's interesting because Conception 2 was published by Atlas. So Spike Chunsoft's coming in and publishing the first one. This is an interesting one, Chris. I'm interested in what you think of this. Number 7. A new River City game is en route. It's called River City Girls, and according to website Gamatsu, it ties in intimately with the old school River City series, which is also known as Kunio-kun in Japan. Old school inspired American studio WayForward, who I love, developed the game, and it was produced by Arc System Works, the Japanese fighting dev best known for their Guilty Gear and BlazBlue series. The game will come to PS4 and elsewhere on September 5th. River City Ransom was originally developed by for Famicom by now defunct Team Technos. It launched in Japan in 1989 and on Western NES's beginning in 1990. A port came to Game Boy Advance in 2004. The Kunio-kun franchise actually preceded Ransom in Japan, and we didn't see many of these games in the West, save stuff like Super Dodgeball and Renegade. So there's a lot of different old school games in the series. Are you a River City Ransom guy? Have you ever played that game?
Not much. I did like it when I played it though, but I just sort of,
It's so ahead of its time. For people that have never played River City Ransom, it's an NES brawler with role-playing game mechanics, and it's really pretty advanced for the day and age that it came out.
It's impressive when you look at it in retrospect, for sure.
So I'm excited about this. River City Girls. Really looking forward to that. WayForward, excellent developer. They're best known for the Shantae series, which is excellent. Mm-hmm. They also made DuckTales Remastered, and they worked on Bloodstained a little bit as well. By the way, I didn't realize this, that the founder of the studio, WayForward, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Way. I didn't know that.
Is it really?
Yeah. So it's like a double entendre.
Ah, that's cool.
You'll learn something new every day. Most underrated WayForward game, by the way, is what was that female vampire character? Blood Rain, yeah. They did a 2D side-scroller Blood Rain game on PS3 in like 2011 or 2012. That's pretty good. If you guys want to go check that out. It was clearly supposed to be a Castlevania game, and Konami said no. I think that's obvious.
Blood Rain is so weird because it's like the Blue Man Group of video games where like everybody knows about it, but no one ever thinks about it until they just pop up one day. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You have to assume THQ Nordic owns Blood Rain, right?
I mean, if you don't know who owns something, it's probably THQ Nordic who owns it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Number 8, Dragon's Dogma Online, will be closing up shop, which is especially sad since Capcom's MMORPG never even made it outside of Japan. Dragon's Dogma Online launched on both PS3 and PS4 in Japan alongside a PC iteration in late August of 2015. Speculation about it coming west ran rampant, but for whatever reason, it never migrated over even as Capcom's original Dragon's Dogma, launched in 2012 on PS3 and elsewhere, found a sizable Western audience. Unfortunately, servers for the game will be shutting down in December, so not only will Dragon's Dogma Online soon be dead, but it'll also have died without much of its potential audience having ever been given the opportunity to try it for themselves.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Did you play the original Dragon's Dogma? That game was really popular with people. I didn't like it very much.
I never played it. Like my roommate played a ton of it. But I don't know. It seemed fine.
Yeah, it was definitely, from when I played it briefly when it came out, it was real. It seemed very budget, and a lot of games that were coming out around that time were just more impressive. But people really did like it. There were a few people at IGN I worked with that were really, really into that game. So Dragon's Dogma Arisen was the DLC, but I don't think we've seen the last of that franchise either. No, I think that Capcom has something there. But I was sad to hear that because on the back of us getting Phantasy Star Online 2 in the West finally, which is a game that came out around actually earlier than this, we're not going to ever get Dragon's Dogma Online. Chris, number 9 is a wrap-up. Again, I told you, a slow news week.
Really light one.
Silicon Error reports that upcoming Digimon Survive has been delayed until 2020. It was originally supposed to come out in 2019. Website Gamatsu reports that Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operation 2 is PS4 bound later this year in the West, that Sim RPG Fuga Melodies of Steel will come to PS4 in 2020 instead of its original 2019 release AIM, that adventure game Elia, which is already on rival platforms like Xbox One, will be coming to PS4 on July 25th, that 2D music game One Hand Clapping is coming to PS4 in 2021. That's the first 2021 release we've seen in this.
One Hand Clapping? What?
That space shooter Subdivision Infinity DX comes to PS4 on August 8th, and that RTS title Ancestors Legacy will come to PS4 on August 13th. Website Push Square reports that One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 is coming to PS4 in 2020, and that old school SRPGs, which I'm really excited about, Langrisser 1 and 2, previously confirmed for PS4, will be launching in the West in 2020. And finally, racing game Grid, originally scheduled for September 10th, will now launch on October 11th. That's a Codemasters game.
Grid? Is that a remake of something?
I guess so. Yeah, Grid's a game
Because
that's already
Grid-
exists, so I think it's just a remake or something.
That sounds cool.
So we'll see how it all turns out. Now, Chris, this is a weird week.
Oh, man.
Because there is no PlayStation blog drop. There's none. There is no drop this week.
Everything is off.
That can't possibly be true. I'm sure that there are games coming out. 42420 wrote into us and said the PlayStation blog did not post the drop for the week of July 9th. Do you think they dropped the ball on that one?
It's good.
And Adam Karskadin wrote in and said, hey, Colin, just wanted to let you know that Catan VR was excluded from the drop a couple of weeks ago and wasn't mentioned on the show. It's a great PSVR game that's perfect for multiplayer if you're a giant nerd like me. That wasn't on the list.
A multiplayer PSVR game. So that's based on Katana, I assume.
Yeah, I would assume so. The Catan board game. There is a popular multiplayer PSVR game called Fire Hour or something like that, right? Fire something.
Is that the FPS one?
Yeah, that people really love that game.
Yeah. Well, I know. I'm sure there are multiplayer. Like, I mean, I guess I'm thinking for whatever reason that VR games are like multiplayer locally for whatever reason, because that seems like the most fun environment to have it. But I guess
you couldn't do that right now because of processing.
It'd be difficult.
That would be pretty cool though, to be able to play some of those games.
Yeah, maybe one day.
So yeah, no drop. We can make up games that came out, but I don't want to do that. I don't know. This is Sony's fault.
Yeah,
sorry, everybody.
Up.
But that means we can move on to reader mail. Chris, as dictated. Someone reminded me last week that I actually said that six questions, comments, concerns, and thoughts and ideas, but I think it's 8 usually. So I was wrong there. I'm losing my fucking mind, I guess it is. So we have 8 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience. Remember, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. That's how you submit your inquiries. Mark Elfering wrote into us and said, do we give Fell Seal a pass on the ripoff moniker because it is a well-made game that knows what it is doing, whereas Ritual of the Night has had issues and so blatantly calls back to Symphony of the Night and pulls the, hey, remember how cool this was 20 years ago thing. This is interesting, Chris. Fell Seal, for people that don't know, is my favorite game of the year. We've talked about it pretty extensively. It's basically an ode to Final Fantasy Tactics. And then obviously Bloodstained is an ode to Symphony of the Night, and I think a really on-the-nose ode in some ways. What do you think about his inquiry here, Chris, where he says, Mark says, do we give it a pass because it knows what it's doing and it does it well? What's the line between, I guess, impersonation and making something new and unique? In other words, not every Metroidvania is inspired by Super Metroid or Castlevania, but the genre wouldn't exist without those games.
Right.
So I totally understand what he's saying. But I think that Fell Seal is accepted because it is a very well done game in a genre that's just for some reason not serviced. I think Bloodstained's a little different because it's made by the person who made or produced Castlevania.
Yeah, I think those are 2 reasonable points. But I also think a lot of whether or not something is okay as a ripoff, quote unquote, a lot of it comes down to how saturated the market is for that kind of game. Like if you're gonna rip off Final Fantasy, that there's already 50,000 of those, Like a proper mainline one. Or if you're going to rip off, a Call of Duty, it's like, why would you do that? It's an annual release. Whereas like something like Shadow of the Colossus, I would love a ripoff of Shadow of the Colossus because we have a grand total of 1 of those. I have not played a game since or before that has that sense of scale, that has that same kind of climb through, like the whole game is boss battles and the bosses are levels and the levels within the level. It's sick. It's awesome. I want more of that. Rip it off. I don't care as long as it's done well, and I think that really is the main thing.
Yeah, I think the
rip-off has to be suck.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there are 2 important parts of the equation: how well it's done and how rare that kind of game really is.
Yeah,
and so I could see people criticizing Bloodstained for being too on the nose. That's one of my complaints about the game in my Let's Play that I put up on my YouTube channel. I talked about how I think it just goes a little bit overboard with some of it. It really feels like a facsimile in some ways, but that is why it's fun to play, I guess. The major problem with Bloodstained is that there's just way too much shit in it. There's just way too many weapons. It's just like out of control how much shit there. It doesn't really serve the game. So that's a bit of a confusing thing for me. I think Fellseal is so special because with the exception of Front Mission, Tactics Ogre, a few of these other series, there's nothing like it. So that's different. So I think actually Fellseal I would give much more of a pass to than Bloodstained. And I think Fellseal is the better game. But those are my two favorite games of the year. Chris, next question.
Next one.
Adam O wrote in and said, hello, the all-knowing two Caesars. I wanted to ask a simple question about indie games seemingly being dead to Sony. Do you think that with Sony leaving the handheld markets maybe added to this downgrade of the indie market? While Xbox and Nintendo seemingly bolstered both Game Pass and their stores with more indie games, do you think maybe Sony should try to add more of these games to PS Now? Adam, interesting thought. I wonder if the collapse of PSP and Vita had something to do with this. I don't know that that's necessarily true because Sony was really trying to get AAA games onto Vita. So their initiative was not to make it an indie machine. It became one. But that wasn't what they intended. That's why I actually think the indie stuff hurt Vita.
Yeah.
So I don't know if should they add indie stuff to PS Now? Of course. I think PS Now should be chock full of as much as they can possibly afford to put in there. But I wonder if, Chris, to Adam's point, and this is well taken, Xbox and Nintendo have bolstered their offerings with a wide array of games. If you go on Game Pass, it's not just the AAA Xbox games are what sell it, but that's not all that's there.
Yeah. And
even AA games like Cuphead and stuff like that, I think have a place. So what do you think?
I don't know if you could really blame the PS Vita or the PSP on the way they're handling the store. I think they're handling the store poorly because they just don't know what to do with it. You know?
Yeah.
It just feels kind of... I don't know if... And also, there's already a metric fuck ton of indie games on the store anyway. Like, there's almost too many as is. PS Now would be a pretty good avenue to go through, though. Because, like, I have no... As it stands right now, I have no desire to subscribe to PS Now at all.
Me neither. Not until they allow full game downloads for everything.
Yeah.
Not just the PS4 games. If you could download PS3 games from PS Now, I'd be all over it. And I really hope.
I would have been on it immediately.
Yeah. If they can really figure that out, I would actually be pretty keen on that. And my assumption is that that's what's going to happen with PS Now. And then I'll jump on board. PS Now would actually be a pretty cool curation tool if Sony tried to also use it like that, to be like, yeah, our store sucks. Use PS Now and we'll have like curation tools that if they baked it in. I think that some people wouldn't like that, but it would be a selling point for me.
Yeah, but then you'd be paying for a better store, basically, which kind of is like you're paying for the privilege to use a better place with which to buy things.
That's true. That's a good point, Chris. Sam Christensen wrote in and said, hello, Colin and Chris. Recently stopped being a freeloader, and I'm loving it. Thank you so much for not being a freeloader, Sam. My question is, why isn't the Skate franchise making a comeback? It seems the big one that people wait for time and time again and come E3. Also read the comments on every EA Instagram post for the past 3 years, and it's only people requesting Skate 4. At this point, I'd be happy to have a remaster collection on PS4. Keep up the great work. Chris, are you a Skate fan?
Not for the reasons that I think the developers may have intended. I love Skate because it's a janky mess, and it just looks amazing when you just mess up. It's such an amusing game to watch people play because just the way the ragdoll works and the way the physics engine is baked into it, it just like leads to some of the best unintentionally hilarious things I've ever seen in any video game, period. But I miss that kind of jank. I wonder if they were to make a new Skate game, would they kind of understand that that's kind of part of the DNA of it, or whether or not they would like polish the shit out of it and kind of in turn kind of ruin some kind of special part of that entire series.
Skate, to me, I recall, I never played it except for the first one a little bit. I remember it being really complicated to play. Which I think
it's not easy.
I think it's on the sticks and stuff, right? Like there's a lot. It's not like playing Tony Hawk or something.
No. It's really complicated, but that's why the ragdoll's so great. Because like I think each button or like each movement of the stick like moves a joint or something like that. Not necessarily like QWOP, but like it's kind of in that vein. It's just so ridiculous. Some of my favorite videos from like early YouTube are just no context clips of people playing Skate. It's so good. I think at the Microsoft conference last year or the year before, they did tease something that everybody thought was Skate.
Yeah.
That looked like kind of a spiritual successor.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember what it was called though because they didn't talk about it.
No, they didn't. It might already be out. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you probably would know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Skate. So I think that the reason there's a few things about Skate with me. I think the thing you have to keep in mind with Skate 4, I think you will get Skate 4. I think it's probably in development. I think EA knows that, but I think that this might be a cautionary tale for EA too. This reminds me a great deal of Mirror's Edge and how people kept asking for a Mirror's Edge sequel and they wanted more Mirror's Edge and it was everything. And then they released Mirror's Edge and fucking no one cared. No one. I think that game probably bombed. I want to say Mirror's Edge probably sold maybe a few 100,000 copies. You know, like that's horrible. Horrible. For
the original one?
No, the second one.
Oh, yeah.
The first one probably sold like 1 million or something. I don't think the first one sold that well, but Mirror's Edge Catalyst, whatever it was called, was not, it was well received, I think, but it didn't sell well. So EA is probably looking at that and being like, well, Skate could be the same thing. And the other thing that I think is really cautionary is, and Activision learned this with Tony Hawk, is that you can't like fit these cultural revolutionary moments into the wrong time in the chronology. We saw this happen when Mad Catz and these other guys jumped in and tried to revive Rock Band and Guitar Hero, and those games bombed because they were not of this time and place. Rock Band and Guitar Hero were really unfathomably big 12 years ago. I remember. I was there. You know, I remember how big it was. We used to stay after work and play, and we'd go to parties and play. Everyone was playing, right?
Yeah.
But no one cares anymore. No one wants these fucking instruments in their house. No one wants all this shit. And so when they went and re-released those games later on, thinking that, well, of course people love Guitar Hero and Rock Band, no one cared. No one cared. And people ate shit. Because that Mad Catz, like, I think Mad Catz like lost a shit ton of money on that. So that could be another thing too, where I don't know what the cultural relevance of skateboarding is today. I mean, I live in Santa Monica, so it's very relevant here. But you have to take all of these things into account, I think, when you're trying to make a new game and releasing it. And they're not interested in releasing Skate 4 and selling 1 million copies. So if that's the threshold, then they're like, well, we can just make FIFA. You know, and we'll be good.
Oftentimes, people kind of don't know what they want.
Exactly.
They'll say, like, I want a rock band. I miss Rock Band. I want Rock Band. Then Rock Band come out and be like, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want to buy this stupid drum set that's going to take up 6 foot by 3 foot space in my fucking small apartment.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Just a different time and place. So just some things to keep in mind, Sam. We appreciate your inquiry. Monday Busk wrote in. That's an interesting name. Monday Busk. Greetings, Colin and Chris. I hope you are well and have enjoyed your 4th of July. In episode 53, you discussed the big three of Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo rallying together with the concern of the trade tariffs affecting hardware manufacturing. If said tariffs passed and the cost of buying hardware went through the roof, wouldn't the winner here be Google Stadia? With only the optional Stadia controller to purchase, the barrier to entry for next-gen games would make Stadia the more financially sound option. Absolutely.
Yes.
Of course.
But I think more people would just stick to their PCs, honestly. I don't think they would definitely be in a advantageous position against the other console manufacturers, but I don't think people are going to jump to Stadia just because it's now the most affordable option. Especially because if people have PCs, that's not the most affordable option. You just, I have a PC, I'm just going to buy the newest games on my PC.
Yeah, I think
like it's yeah.
I already think that Sony and Microsoft are going to have somewhat of a hard time migrating people from the consoles right now because I think people are happy with them. Mm-hmm. So this would just add an extra layer to the complication. But I know that some people were a little nervous about my tariff discussion last week. You have to remember that these tariff threats are used just as threats. I really find it hard to believe that ultimately there's going to be tariffs on video game consoles in the United States, but it might be. And if that's the case, then yeah, the people who win actually are the people who are giving you, like Chris said, on PC or wherever the case might be, giving you content on what you already own. So I actually think Sony and Microsoft would be disappointed in that, but they still have these consoles that people would be forced to play and buy content on. So it's something that needs to be straightened out.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is an interesting thought. And I got to say about Google Stadia, man, the buzz about Google Stadia seems to be under zero. Like below zero. I feel bad because I actually know people that work on it and know people on that team, including some friends of mine.
It's cool, but it's a cool. Here's the thing: like the tech is awesome. It's neat. It's just I just have a hard time believing it until I'm gonna try it out. I will because it's only fair that I try it out. But like I don't know, man. I just don't know if I'll ever be in a situation where I'd want to just play a game on a stream as opposed to just having the damn thing installed.
Yeah.
Just for reliability's sake.
In a world of options, giving me only one option is not going to work for me.
Yeah, basically.
Tim Bob wrote in.
Tim Bob?
Yep, Tim Bob.
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. Like Zimbabwe, the country?
Yeah.
With Microsoft having announced that Xbox One controllers will go forward to the next gen, do you expect Sony to follow suit? And what is your personal preference, carryover or redesign?
Oh, well, I like that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
that's actually probably smart given the
that's not a huge surprise, right?
I mean,
you're gonna need. I mean, if you're gonna play games from the old generation, then the
it's not a surprise, but it's also like it hasn't necessarily been done. You know, the Xbox to the 360 was a completely different controller. The 360 to the Xbox One was a completely different controller, and they don't work back to back. So, all right, yeah.
The only truly cross-gen, like historically, the only truly cross-gen
PS3 to PS4, right?
Well, was GameCube. Worked on Wii and worked on Wii U. I don't know if it works on. I think it works on Switch.
The GameCube controller does work on Switch.
So I love the GameCube controller. Is my favorite controller of all time. I love that controller.
I thought that recently, until I tried to play literally anything that wasn't Smash Brothers on it. And you realize that you're just missing buttons.
Yeah,
like you can't click the sticks in. So like you can't like sneak in Sky. We were playing Skyrim with the GameCube controller out of curiosity because it works on the Switch. And we realized we couldn't sneak
because you can't
click the sticks in. And there's like less buttons. There's like one less bumper button. So it's just,
they have
two triggers and one Z.
Yeah, one Z. Yeah, sorry, I hit the mic. One Z on the left side, but not on the right side. That's
so it's impossible.
And it has like a bump on it.
Yeah,
that button's weird.
It's kind of a terrible controller for anything that isn't like designed with that controller in mind.
I don't know that I guess you're right because I'm only talking about it from an ergonomic perspective where it fits so perfectly into my hands. I think it's just the size, like the specific controller and the specific size of my hands. You know,
I really like the original the original Xbox one that wasn't the Duke, the S or whatever. Yeah. That one was nice.
That's the one I got with my console.
Even though it had the black and white buttons, which I didn't really care for.
Yeah, those buttons were so weird.
Yeah,
there was a lot of buttons on the Xbox controller. But yeah, Tim Bob. Not a huge surprise that the Xbox One controller is being brought forward. Remember, PS4 controllers work backwards. You can use a PS4 controller on a PS3. So with the backwards compatibility, that's not a huge surprise. But I do want to see, and you will see, a new controller. I'm just curious to see. And by the way, Microsoft is not saying that the Xbox One controller is coming with the new Xbox. So I want to be clear. I don't think that's what Tim Bob means, but I want to be sure I'm clear about that as well.
I'm sure Scarlett's going to have its own controller, but you're just going to have a choice now, which is good because they're putting out these freaking expensive ass Elite controllers, and it's going to suck if you can't use it on the next generation of hardware.
Yeah.
You know,
unification
be a bad investment.
I agree. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the controllers, the new ones.
Yeah. That's my favorite part, I feel like. Just seeing like what the controllers are the neatest part design-wise, I think. Of the next, whenever a next generation's on the horizon.
For sure. I love the PS4 controller. I love it. I totally love it. I think it's great.
I think this generation in general has probably the best overall controller layout.
Definitely.
Like the
Not
Switch,
a huge surprise, right?
The Switch one's better than the Wii was and the Wii U. Good lord, man.
Yeah,
Christ.
The Wii U was weird because it had the face buttons above.
Below the sticks.
Oh, it's so weird. That whole motion didn't make any sense to me. I remember I've talked about it, playing Mass Effect 3 on it and being like, I can't do this. I don't know how to play like this. Like when you have muscle memory that built into you, that movement with your fingers, and then suddenly on this one machine, you have to go. I just can't believe that got through anyone.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, they walked it back immediately. They walked it back for the Switch.
Wii U sucks. I think the Wii U is fucking terrible. I remember so clearly how excited people were about the Wii U, and I'm like, that thing sucks.
I think it's probably, I can't think of a worse console since the 2000s began.
It's definitely the worst console of the 21st century. Cody Horn wrote it and said, "Hi guys, we know that Guerrilla is currently working on 2 new games for the PS5. They are working on a Horizon sequel and an undisclosed multiplayer game. Could it be possible that this multiplayer game is not in fact another Killzone, but the multiplayer component to Kojima's Death Stranding? Kojima has been able to put out his new game quicker than expected while also using a brand new engine. I could see a collaboration between the teams being a possibility due to the speed at which the project is being completed and the revelation that Death Stranding has a multiplayer component while Guerrilla also has an undisclosed multiplayer experience they are working on. I love Killzone games and want to see another one, but the connection between these 2 studios only makes sense. Thanks, you two." I think you're probably reading into this a little too much, Cody. I have no information on this for sure, but so the reason that Guerrilla and Kojima are working so closely is because the game is being built on Decima, which Guerrilla made. So they're the ones. It's like DICE. It's like DICE, the studio's role in EA's ecosystem as the arbiter of Frostbite console. Like they're the ones that know how it works. Guerrilla's the one that knows how Decima works. So it's not a surprise that they're cross pollinating. I really highly, and in fact, the game. I know they're not working on a Death Stranding multiplayer component based on the multiplayer rumor you're talking about. Now, there could be a third project, but the multiplayer project is not Death Stranding.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
I don't know when you're gonna
I don't
find out
think
what
so
it is.
either. I think that'd be a little weird. It's also not super common to have, actual like first party studios working on secondary components to other first party studio games. Like I can't think of a. That's not usually something that happens.
No,
it?
usually you bring in third party help.
Yeah, usually like it's like a certain affinity or like those kinds of outlets.
For sure. Now, obviously, when you have Bend making an Uncharted game on Vita, Naughty Dog's obviously going to consult on that, but that's about as far as that goes. So, yeah, Cody, I like where your head's at, because I like the conspiracy game quite a bit. I do like that quite a bit. But, yeah, I think a lot of their cooperation really focuses on Decima and using that engine. And so I wouldn't look too much further into it than that. I agree with you, though. This game was done way too quickly for a Kojima game, and I still do not believe it's coming out this year. Just throwing that out there. Don't believe it. Ryan Hooper wrote in and said, "Hey CNC, just curious what your thoughts are on the current voice acting talent in games. Watching the Avengers E3 presentation, I noticed it was once again the usual suspects like Troy, Nolan, and Laura playing Earth's mightiest heroes. Other than the occasional celebrity one-off like Reeves in Cyberpunk or Reedus in Death Stranding, for example, it seems like it's a lot of the same voice actors being used over and over again in different franchises. I mean, Troy has already played Batman and the Joker. I get that Harrison Ford was Han Solo until he was Indiana Jones, but I would imagine games like Last of Us, Spider-Man, etc. would have sold just as well with other actors in the role. Would you like to see bigger AAA releases cast a wider net when it comes to voice actors, or do these guys keep getting jobs because they are the best actors out there? Keep making Tuesdays great again."
Yeah, there is like a very limited pool for whatever reason.
Very
like,
incestuous.
I know it's gotten to the point where like I know what Nolan North sounds like in anything, and it's just, that's Nolan North. Like immediately, it's incredibly recognizable, and it kind of takes me out of it sometimes. It is weird because I know so many people who voice act, and it's just like, why do these? I don't know. Like I don't have any problem with these people. I like them all, but like. Surely there's more people to choose from.
No, I agree. Even Nolan, I remember one of the big things with The Last of Us was people were, and by the way, the game came out 6 years ago, so I'm going to spoil it. Was when a big reveal in that was that Nolan North played like one of the villains, like that you encounter in the game. And I'm like, why is Nolan North in this game? Like, why do we have to have Nolan North in this game? Now, I know Troy Baker pretty well, and I've met Nolan and Laura, many times. These are salt of the earth people. They're very good, nice people, but I am in general agreement that I don't know that these performances are so transformative for the medium that you only focus on these same people. It's very weird to see Willingham and Bailey and Baker and North in everything. I absolutely agree, and it's not make your money. If I were them, I'd be all over it. But yeah. To me, I agree with you. I think that there has to be more to it. But I think that, Chris, the reason why they're so attractive, I think,
it's because they're safe.
They're safe, but also I think it's because they're experienced in this specific thing. Because it's not just voice acting; it's mocap. And
That's
so
true, yeah.
Understanding motion capture, I think, gives you a heads up. And I think it was probably like with Detroit when there was like real actors in that, including one of the guys that's like on Grey's Anatomy. Like one of the main actors is one of the guys in this. What's his name? Williams or something. Jason Williams or something.
Yeah, whatever.
And I imagine that was a pretty unique experience for him compared to Nolan North walking in and doing his 25th motion capture session.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to start to see a shift. I think because I was talking about this with my roommate the other day where like a lot of these big budget movies like your Spider-Mans and your Avengers and your Star Wars, they're probably so CG and effects heavy oriented that like I feel like a lot of actors are looking at video games as like, yeah, that's basically like working on a movie now anyway. I feel like you're going to see a lot more like actual actors kind of coming into video games now, especially with like Keanu Reeves just recently and even a couple of years ago, like Terry Crews in Crackdown for no reason. Like it's going to start happening as the lines between mocap for a game and like CG for a movie like those lines start to blur.
I think you're probably right. I would just love to see more anonymous talent in games. Not drawing from the pool of SAG-AFTRA actors, but
oh, for sure,
that's fine. But also, there's just a lot of people that do it. Like there's some great voice acting and great writing and great performances in these smaller games. And so, yeah, it is a shame to see a monopolization at the top. But I don't know that that's necessarily the actor's fault. There needs to be more creativity and imagination with the people who are casting these people.
For sure, it's not the actor's fault. Don't scream at Nolan North.
And I don't know. I mean, no offense to Nolan North. Again, a great guy, iconic as Nathan Drake and other characters, but he'll always be Nathan Drake to me. But I agree. I don't know that the Avengers sells one more copy because he's in the game. I don't believe it. You know,
Yeah.
I just don't know that that's true. Just like I don't know that Troy Baker being in Final Fantasy 13 helped that game at all.
Yeah.
You know, I just...
You know what bothered the hell
I
out of
don't
me
know.
when I was playing Destiny, right? And Destiny originally launched with like a really weird cast. It had like Bill Nighy and Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Dinklage, who was terrible. Terrible.
I liked him a lot.
Did you really?
I did.
Didn't they remove him?
They removed him, but like
it's so bad.
No, I don't know, man. I think people just didn't get the tone, man. I loved Dinklage in that. It sounded so off.
That's the first version. That's the version I played.
I like that
Dinklage
one,
version.
but like that wizard came from the moon. It's fucking ridiculous. But and they have like Nathan Fillion in there, and like a lot of the people from the original Firefly. Alan Tudyk, I'm pretty sure, is in it. But like as they updated and they started removing actors, Nolan North now plays Nathan Fillion's role and the Ghost in Destiny. So he plays two characters in the same game, and it's just Nolan North all the time. And it's so frustrating because I don't hate him, but it just gets a little, it gets a little much sometimes.
Yeah, I think that when let me back up, because I think maybe Nolan North's motivation could be not only money, obviously, but to remove the typecast that he would otherwise have experienced by not hitting the ground and trying to do as much as he could.
Yeah.
Because he really is Nathan Drake. Like, I mean, that really is that character. So to break out of that as quickly as possible might have been a smart career move for him, because I don't know that maybe a lot of younger gamers or more casual gamers do associate him with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I agree with you. I only know... I can name like 6 people in games that are like voice actors, and they're all the big names and they're in everything. So yeah, I think it's boring, but it's no offense to them personally. Again, I really think this goes down to the publishers and developers expanding, using their minds a little bit, and being a little more risky, let's say.
Yeah, I miss the weirder ones. I miss David Hayter.
David Hayter is Zangatsu in Bloodstained.
I love it, and he's just Snake.
Oh yeah, it's
I love it.
It's totally Snake. It's very funny. Chris, the final inquiry comes from Murray M., who wrote in and said, "Hi, boys. The question is more for Colin, but we can definitely both answer this. With all the talk about censorship in the PlayStation ecosystem, are there any games you have played which have been better because of censorship? Thank you for all of the work that you put in."
Because of it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, actually. Because
I
don't know that any game has become better, but I will say that I like when things are left more to the imagination. And so I don't know if that's like an example of censorship or self-censorship, but I don't like sex scenes. I've talked about this. I don't like sex scenes in movies. I think they're awkward. I don't think they add anything. I was just watching Rosemary's Baby recently for Knockback, which is an amazing horror movie from the 60s. If anyone's ever seen it, I fucking love that movie. Mia Farrow's in it. And really, Ruth Gordon plays her neighbor. She won an Academy Award for the performance. And the interesting thing about that movie is that it's totally demonic and scary, but there's only one example of any blood in it or gore. And it's very startling, because you see it and then you don't, and then it goes right back into the movie, and you never really see it, or it's not really referenced again. And that's what made that so powerful. So when you see a bunch of gore and violence, I don't want to see that, because then it becomes less important to the story. The same thing with sex, where okay, they're hooking up, they're getting together, but I don't need to see it in order to understand it.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if that's an example of what he's talking about, but I think that sometimes by not showing things, you strengthen the product by leaving something to the imagination. And so I think games that show restraint are inherently better than games that don't.
Maybe. My counterpoint is you can eat an old man in Prototype and wear his skin and become him.
That's true.
And that's the only reason I love that game.
That's a valid counter argument.
I can't think of it. I don't know. Like I struggle to think of games that I've played that have been censored, really, at all. So that's kind of the thing. Unless I was somehow had like insight into the development of it, I would never know. Like maybe there's a game that I've played and that I love that had some scene taken out of it, but I'm not privy to what that is, so I couldn't necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the examples you're right, because the examples we do know about this that have happened recently, like with Devil May Cry, and others didn't enhance the game or ruin it, so it just happened. I don't think that if anyone played those scenes showing that girl, whatever, she was naked or whatever in Devil May Cry, if you played only the PS4 version and you didn't have any insight into it, you probably wouldn't have known any better.
That one's a little bit, because she just has a light coming out of her ass, and it's like a little bit weird.
Yeah, like a lens flare coming out of her bunghole.
It's like far more distracting than if it was just, how it was initially. But yeah, I struggle to really think of anything that was better or worse because of censorship. I'm glad they rolled back on the DMC5 thing though. That game's great.
Well, we're going to talk about that on episode 55 because we're going to record that right after this. We're going to wrap this episode up now.
Yeah.
Episode 55 is going to be our games of the year so far. And lots of input from you guys, too, that I've organized as well. But yeah, no, I think you're right, Chris. I think that it's hard to know what's better or worse without having specifics about what was removed or not. And we've only have had a few examples of that.
Yeah, and it's usually of games that like I've never touched or never would touch anyway.
Yeah, Dead or Alive, beach volleyball, and stuff like that.
Yeah. The tit doesn't jiggle as much in 0.01 version.
I know, where her titty jiggles. Chris, by the way, before we go, speaking of titty jiggles, what do you think about this gamer girl bathwater?
Oh my god! So I saw this great fake headline that was like 50 people, what is it? Contract herpes after drinking Instagram star Belle Delphine's bathwater. It was like obviously fake because it was from some what was it trying to be like?
It was like
the Daily Mail.
The Daily Mail.
It was some satire of the Daily Mail. It was so good though. I cracked the fuck up. I was like laughing for 30 straight minutes. But
yeah.
it's hey man, it's supply and demand.
I completely agree.
It's business. She's definitely way smarter than people are giving her credit for.
Oh, hell yeah.
She's selling bathwater, which by the way is definitely not bathwater. She's just running jars through a sink. Because it's far less effort to just do that than it is to take a jar and like dump it in a full bathtub after you've bathed in it. She's making money for minimal effort, which is awesome.
It's weird because I wonder, so many it's sold out apparently. How many people bought it ironically?
I'm sure the overwhelming majority of people bought it as a joke. Just so they could give it to like someone who's like, hey, I got you this. It's a great gag gift. It is.
See, that girl's interesting to me because she's definitely super hot.
Yes.
But I don't really understand. Like, it seems like people are turning on her because of this one thing where I'm like, this is too far. First of all, these e-girls are everywhere, all doing the same thing. So maybe not selling bathwater, but they're selling like their underwear and shit. What is any different about that? I think it's like probably a little weirder.
She's really good at marketing. She trolled pretty much everybody. She was like, get my Instagram to like 1 million followers and I'll make a Pornhub account. And she did. And it was just like all these raunchy titles, but then the videos were just like, basic. Like,
dude, I love those videos. Like,
really smart.
I love those titles where it's like man rides taxi to work or whatever without any incident or something like that. And it's on Pornhub. It's so funny to me.
Yeah. She's smart. Props to her.
Man goes on interview without issue. It's super, it's like so funny to me. Yeah, no, she's super smart. One of the responses that were funny was that she showed this picture of her ass with the bathwater, and she had, I guess she didn't realize it was like a hair, like one of her blonde hairs, like on her ass.
Yeah.
And someone was like, I would pay good money to floss with that hair on your asshole or something like that. Christ. I'm like, what is happening? What is going on? But I agree with you. I think that this is a market generated thing. If you don't want this particular girl to get this attention to make all this money, then just don't give it to her, I guess.
Yeah. Basically.
Give it to us. I'll send you bathwater.
I won't, but like I'll support Colin.
It's too bad because, it's obvious. There are so many people that did the spoof of them being in the bath and selling their bathwater that now that's just like run into the ground, because that would have been a pretty funny thing if I was a little quicker.
There's probably a good twist you could think of. The only question is whether or not it's even worth thinking of.
But here's the thing I want to know the most, and this is when it's going to get
I'll sell my tears.
Sell your yeah. I can fill you jars of those. My big question, the conundrum I have is this: the people that bought it earnestly, what do they drink it? Do they masturbate with it? Do they
I don't know.
Keep it?
I think most of these are joke purchases. Just to be like, I got you this jar that says gamer girl bathwater. I'm sure there's like maybe like a percentage of people who are like weird about it, but I can't even imagine what satisfaction you could possibly get from that. It's literally just water. At a certain point, like, what do you just like scoop rainwater out of a drain? Like, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine it satisfying anybody.
No, I can't imagine it either. There are just so many of these girls out there. I mean, do your thing. I don't care. But I'm always surprised. Like, there are just so many of these girls out there.
Yeah.
So many.
It makes you wonder what
is happening. Like, this is a new phenomenon. I've been on the internet a long time. Like, the e-girl thing in games is a new thing. This is a thing that came only the last few years. Like Twitch really, I think, was the one that really did this. Mm-hmm. And I just, to each his own. If you want to support these people, that's fine. I mean, people support us. We some people think we suck. That's perfectly fine. But I'm always confused by like, how does this particular competitive ecosystem work? It's like an arms race, because
how do you compete really if it's all kind of? I guess you just kind of have to market to like the people who would assume that. How people have types, right? There's always going to be somebody who you're always going to be somebody's type. You know what I mean? So always someone. So I guess everybody out there is just kind of getting the attention from that group of people.
A micro community.
Yeah, a micro community that's obsessed enough to keep them afloat. I would assume that's how it works.
Super interesting.
Because there's so many of them and they're all making money.
Yeah.
So, which is interesting. I don't know.
I hope they're all making money. Are they all making money?
I'm sure they're all making money.
Yeah.
I'm positive.
Well, good for them.
Yeah,
I just can't imagine.
If I had D cups, man, I'd be doing this shit too. Like, I mean, are you kidding me? It's like, I can get paid by existing and not being obese.
Even so, there's probably some people that want you to be obese.
Exactly. Yeah,
rubbing chicken breasts all over your body and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, hell, it's just. I mean, hey, man, you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah, more power to you.
Whatever.
I wonder, like. I would love to have one of these girls on the show just to hear about the experiences that they must have with people. If you're as famous as this chick is, or like, what's that, Jessica Negri? She's probably the biggest cosplayer, or one of them. She must get recognized. There must be all sorts of weird shit. And the other thing is like, if they're in a relationship and you're the man and you know that there are potentially thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just beating it to your like woman,
Yeah.
It's a very complicated dance, sociologically, that I would be really interested in talking about.
It is kind of interesting. Do you think it'd be like, kind of like one of those things, like I have it?
I guess.
And everybody else wants it?
I think that if I knew...
It's like having a nice house and everybody wants that house. It's like, damn, I want that house. And it's like, deal with it. I have it. It's mine.
That's true. Erin is gorgeous. I have a gorgeous girlfriend, and I know people are attracted to her, but she's not putting herself out there like that, so it's a little different.
Right.
I think you have to kind of have some sort of cognitive dissonance in some way to be like, I'm okay with this. Just because it's, I guess unless you're in an open relationship or whatever, it's very, this is exactly why I'd love to have conversations with some of these people.
It's interesting.
Just to pierce the veil a little bit, figure it out. What's her name? Belle Delphine?
It's Belle Delphine, I think.
Belle Delphine. Okay, if you're listening, you're not. But if you're listening, come on Fireside Chats. Let me know what's going on. Be really interested to talk to you. And buy some of your bathwater, perhaps.
Yeah.
We can bring it to a lab. I just watched Jurassic Park. We can bring it to a lab and try to create you.
Clone
you in a lab.
Or brew some beer with it.
Yeah, brew some beer. Yeah, that's the thing. I want to see what people are doing.
I'm sure that's
with it.
Probably like next on the thing. That'd be smart.
Yeah, like make
I think that's
something
probably
with
actually
it.
happened already.
Something that needs water, like like a cake or some recipe with Belle's water in it.
Yeah, you could save all the California pizza places with Belle Delphine's bathwater. Because they all say it's the water.
It's the water. Yeah. Where does she live? Does she live in maybe that's the thing.
They're just trying to get New York water.
Yeah.
I don't know where she lives. I have no idea where she's based.
How old is she? Do we know that? Do we know anything about her?
I assume. Hold on, let me look this up.
All right.
I assume
I'm sure she's of age. I'm just saying, like, is she like? I've never seen her until recently.
No, yeah, I didn't see her until I think last week or like 2 weeks ago when the whole thing started kicking off.
Yeah.
I was watching Stranger Things the other day, right? And have you watched Stranger Things at all?
I'm on the second season.
Do you know Nancy or whatever that girl's
sister?
name? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so stunningly beautiful. It's distracting.
Yeah, she's really crazy hot.
It's distracting.
Yeah, she's also like in her late 20s or something. So that's also, and she's supposed to be like a high school student. So that's also a little distracting.
She's 23, I think.
Oh, okay. So that's not that bad.
It's not so bad, but it's like distracting. I can't find her age.
All right. Well, it doesn't matter.
So whatever.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is she like 27? Has she grinded and finally found fame? She's not necessarily any hotter than a lot of other girls.
Yeah, so
that's what I'm curious
like
about.
a ninja thing, right? Where it's like ninja's been at this for like ages,
right?
And then just exploded with Fortnite, or is this just kind of like an overnight kind of weird? Yeah, I don't know. It'd be an interesting conversation to have for sure.
Definitely. I would love to have that conversation. Yeah, because that whole angle that vertical is totally new to games. And it's funny because it really does seem to take advantage of this thing that people used to make fun of, which like back in the 90s and early 2000s, IGN had like IGN babes and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. and like would post pictures of like chicks in bikinis, and there was like this whole thing. And then
that was like College Humor too would do that.
Exactly. And people got offended by that. But now we've kind of gone full circle. Now we're back to it again. Like these people, no one's watching these girls on Twitch because of their games that they play. You know, that's the interesting thing about it. I really doubt that that's happening for very many people. So how do you know, like, why not just sit there with your boobs hanging out?
Because, well, it's against terms of
I'm
service.
not saying your nipples, but I'm saying, like, if no one's really watching you, or a few people are, I guess what I'm saying is, like, how, let me back up. People listen to this show. I know people listen to the show because they like the show. They like us, they like the humor, they like the informative nature of it, all of that kind of stuff. I don't think people are watching it for any other, or listening to this for any other reason. But if you're doing this shit, then how do you know who's earnestly watching you for gameplay and asking you questions, and who's the fucking freak or the weirdo, and who's just staring at you? I feel like it's because of the agency of the woman. I have no problem doing it. No one's forcing them to do it, so they can do whatever they want. But I'm all for like legalizing prostitution and shit. So like I'm way further left than that. But I guess I wonder, like, and this is another question I ask, is like, how do you do that calculus in your head? Like, how do you feel about the fact that most people are paying attention to you just because of the way you look? Like, you could literally speak fucking Russian and read War and Peace and no one's going to care, right? That's the thing I want to know about, because that to me seems, that would be hard for me to grapple with.
Yeah. I think it'd be pretty difficult for anybody. I think, but I don't know. She's selling back. That's the thing. It's like, I don't know if she's really looking at this in a vein that's particularly seriously, or at least not in, maybe serious in a business sense, but not serious. I don't think Belle Delphine is online thinking that like, oh, I want people to pay attention. I wish people would pay attention to my intellect or anything. You know what I mean? Right. She's very clearly intelligent if she's capable of pulling this off so quickly and so successfully.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think she knows what to cater to and what the audience is and how things spread on the internet, and she's used that to her advantage to make a lot of money.
I'm calling this episode eGirl's Arms Race. Where's my pen? Aaron cleaned my desk. I can't find any of my shit.
Oh shit.
Stop cleaning, because now I can't find anything.
We need our filth.
All right. Well, that was an interesting conversation. I would love to have more of that. You know, here's the thing that I want. Here's the person I want to speak to the most, because I think you're right. Belle is leaning into it. She knows what she is, right? It's like a model in Playboy. Like, you know who you are, or not who you are, but what you're doing. I want to know if you're an attractive girl streaming on Twitch, but you're doing it because you love the games, you love the content. That's the gray area where, how do you know who's watching you to watch you and who's watching you to stare at you? Yeah. And does that matter to them? Because that would matter to me.
I'm sure it matters to them. Right?
So that's, I think, see, if I were them, if I were the girl trying to just stream, not being the so-called titty streamer, as some people like to pejoratively say. Yeah. If I was just a girl gamer streaming, I think I'd be pretty upset about the people on my flank that were making it look like I either only wanted to do that, I can't get attention if I do that, no one wants to pay attention to me because of that, etc. and so on. It's very complicated. Yeah. Sexual, and I don't mean sexual like sex, I mean sex like gender. I guess those are two different things now. That game, very interesting.
But yeah, no, I'm...
This is a good example of Sacred Symbols Plus.
Actually, yeah. That's good. It's a good thing we didn't have a drop, because we have an excuse to talk about this shit.
This is exactly... That was unintentional, but this is Sacred Symbols Plus.
Yeah.
Look at that, Chris.
Look at that, huh?
All right, let's get the fuck out of here. We have to record the next episode, which will go live next week, of course. Thank you for your support, your kindness, your love, your generosity. Remember, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ColinsLastStand for early ad-free access to every episode of the show. Vote on the Let's Plays we do. We're going to do Crash Team Racing this month.
Oh, hell yeah.
And just your general support is necessary and needed, so please do keep that in mind. Tell your friends and family about us. If you're freeloaders, leave us nice reviews on iTunes, etc. We appreciate you so much, and we'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product of and a registered trademark of Colin's Last Stand, LLC, and is recorded right here in sunny Santa Monica, California, USA. This show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun. You can find me on Twitter at NoTaxation and on Instagram at CLS Moriarty. Chris is on Twitter at Chris R. Gunn and on Instagram at Chris_Ray_Gun. Sacred Symbols is edited by Dustin Furman. Any snail mail can be sent to the CLS P.O. Box, P.O. Box 1233, Santa Monica, California, 90406. To message the show online, please use Patreon's DM service. As you know, all of Colin's Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we are eternally grateful for your kindness, generosity, and fandom. Carlos Algarit, Morgan Ashley, Taylor Barkley, Sean Battershaw, Martin Beck, Eric Bishop, Mark Boggio, Eli Bosford, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Miguel Brewer, Lennon Brixey, Jimmy Brown, Jason Budnick, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Andrew Burkhart, Dylan Burns, Chris Buston, Alex Cabrera, Tom Cargill, Patrick Carper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chan, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, Gio Corsi, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Colin Davenport, Mitchell Durkash, Zachary Douglas, Night Draft, David Ellis, Martha Emery, Liam Fagan, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Fodios Frangos, Michael Gallier, Chris Galvin, Connor Gashian, Alex Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem Al Ghanem, Daniel Glassford, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Tyler Harris, Kyle Hagel, Wyatt Henry, Asa Haas, Azan Isa El Ricey, Josh Yeager, John Jameson, Jimmy Jolicure, Joshua Jonathan, Greg Juliffs, Anton K, Jeremy Key, Auntie Kinnanen, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kittredge, Jackson Lastiqua, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith A. Lewis, Chad Lewis, Lou and Ray Loper, Colin Love, Josh M., Ryan T. Mandel, Peter Mark, Michael Martinez, Sean Mason, Zachariah McAdoo, John McCarthy, Josh McKinney, Joe McPartlin, Andrew Mendoza, Christopher Midling, Alex Mones, Chris Moore, Betty Ann Moriarty, Ryan Murdoch, Adam Nix, Donnie Nolan, George A. Nunez, Grayson Orr, Brian Ott, Jorge Palomino, Daniel Parsons, Marius S. Peterson, Gerald Pennington, Enrique Perez, James Perrone, Jason Pettit, Jeff Pollard, Louis Powell, Lawrence F. Prokop, Andrew Ramos, Ryan Reeves, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Shane Rayum, Jonathan Rice, Mark Richardson, Toby D. Riemenschneider, Austin Riley, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, Josh Salinas, Jose Salinas, John Scholes, Michael Shanholz, Toby Shootman, Glendon Cole Simper, Joshua Smallwood, Daniel Strycharsk, Ahmad Tamar, Will Vielander, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Alan Tremblay, Jacob Turnbaugh, Raymond Vargas, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Connor Walton, Isaac Wastman, Damon Weatherds, Mike Wayant, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Hugo's Desk, Organic Produce, Casual Misfits Gaming, Supershot ST, Homeworld Hub, Throw 7, Nick C, Infinite, Mad Mock Media, Fabian, Mubarak, Richter 86, Andrew, Ian, Chris, Dav 9834, Donk 2015, and Gavin.